We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such.
I know y'all tired of it, but we got a new season of The Pass. Welcome to season 8, the Mamba Year. Podcast available on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of your podcast platforms. Here you'll get a dose of content related to tech, the productivity world, and most importantly, how to be a better you. The theme for this year, personally, is receiving grace. And we definitely want to do better with receiving it and being open to being a better us from who we were a year ago. So this is season 8 of The Pass, and I hope you all enjoy. It seems like the minute that I go away or come back or am trying to reconfigure or figure this thing out again with recording and doing podcasts, it's like I got it. We get into a good groove. We stop. We come back. We recover, etc., etc. And I'll be honest, I think the last time we did a show was, if you are specific, I would say it was the weekend before my birthday. If we're counting based on what's been uploaded online, it would be on my birthday. I recorded a walkcast before celebrating. So episode 416 of The Pass is here. And it's interesting only because from doing this show, there's a lot that I have updated that I have not gotten into that I want to talk about on this episode, as well as just talk about where life is right now. And not because one thing that's key for me lately is I'm learning that I'm not going to force a show. I know for some people it's a tradition of, hey, we expect the content, so upload content. And I want to talk about that real quick before I get too in depth to the things that I want to get into. Content creation is very tricky. And the reason I'm starting with that, or the reason I say that, is because there's such a misconceived idea or notion that you have to do what everyone else does. So for instance, for a long time, I found myself to be pulled into the, dare I say, the, how can I put it? The continue posting content, continue to post content, share and upload content. And it's not an invalid assessment by a long shot. However, and I use this term and I say this term very loosely, you want to be sure that the content that you're sharing, ironic, I have that as one of my topics for when I was going to do that episode. However, you want to be smart with what you're uploading. And I say that speaking from true, raw, and honest experience, because the last thing you need is to be in a position or feel like you're in a position to upload something just to upload it. I've found myself putting a lot of photos online, and a lot of photos, it's not that I don't want people to see them. It's just some stuff I'm just not in the space to share. Now, I say that, but then on the flip side, as many of you have noticed, on Saturdays, which I didn't do it today, on Saturdays, I always do my walk. And then after the walk, I do like a reflection, just talking about life or talking about experiences or whatever the case may be. I've found that those have been very helpful because they have been a source of verbal sharing. I might have shared this on the podcast, but I'm going to share it now because I want people to be aware and understand. I've been on Instagram for over 12 years. Ta-da. No surprise, right? I believe my account was created in like 2011 or 2012, give or take. And when I first joined Instagram, I'm going to be 100% honest. I really didn't have any knack or interest to post or share photos. I still remember the app at the time called Textgram. I don't believe it's on the Android apps on the Android, on the Google Play Store anymore. But Textgram basically gave you the resource or the option to take any post, take any message, give it a certain font, give it a certain background. You could give it a basic color. There were a couple of paid apps that I utilized through my Android ecosystem as well as my iPhone ecosystem that would just allow me to strictly post messages. Recently, I was on a Canva kick. I still use Canva from time to time, not as frequently, but I am a Canva supporter. I don't have any negative ill will with Canva. I just give people very well knowledge information based on Canva with ownership of what you create. However, I have been an Adobe Suite person, which I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, Adobe Suite, why? What has you so pulled into it? But I've been using Adobe for almost 4 years, and I was using it initially. I mean, I was able to get software how I need to get it. If you know, you know. But now I'm a subscriber. I have my plan. I utilize the resources. Just about every application is on my desktop. I have Illustrator. Literally, I have Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign like all together. Then there's a buffer with Figma. And then the application you're hearing me on now that I use, I would probably say 98% of the time for my podcast has been Adobe Audition. I think Adobe Audition is like just a very clean and a simple application for recording podcasts, but that's neither here nor there. I say these things and I talk about this referencing Instagram because recently I got introduced to Adobe Express, which Adobe Express lets you design written messages or written posts on the fly. And I'm able to add, if I need to add a watermark, if I need to add anything, if I need to make it look specific, I can make those things and not make it be more than what it needs to be. And so far it's worked to my advantage, and I've been very, very pleased with their content, ways of helping with creating content for uploading messages. Because I got back probably in the spring of this year, got back to doing the weekly inspirations, which has been very helpful for myself and for those who have been receiving it, hopefully, and have found that to be like a good resource. So I bring that up because I am more attached to the writing element with content creation. So that has caused me, when I do use my brick accessory, which I'm gonna promote it and push it now. If y'all looking to reduce your screen time, please order. And I'm not saying use it because of me. You don't have to stress in using it based on my promo code. Look up YouTube videos, go to their Instagram page. Notice the difference in people's screen times when they do brick their phone versus when they keep their phone unbricked and access everything. The more you have access to multiple resources, the more you're compelled to be pulled into the content world of the internet. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with going online and posting, but sometimes the posting can get a little hectic, and even down to how creators are now, really pushing the engagement, needing that to be more pushed and be such a big deal. If you want to target certain applications, like I still use Twitter and I still use Threads, which I'm going to talk about two things with Twitter. I'm going to talk about Twitter and also something with Buzzsprout in a minute, but because I was supposed to share this, I want to say back in August, but didn't have a chance to. But All that being said, if you are looking to get the brick accessory, get brick.app. You can buy one, you can buy two, you can buy three. If you buy more than one, you get a discount on them. You can use the promo code Bryan Brick, and that will save you 10% off. So definitely check that out if it's something that you might find resourceful. Speaking from personal experience, I've shared this before. It has gotten my screen time down as we speak to I've been under 8 hours a week when I'm using it consistently and really in that off the grid space. So I'm telling you all this from experience. I'm telling you all this because it has worked for me, and hopefully it can work for you and your day-to-day or your work, your flow. So I just wanted to get that out there before I get too in depth with what I want to talk about today. Like I said, we haven't done a podcast since my birthday. I do have one walkcast in the queue, I believe. I'm trying to remember if I've done any since then, because it's kind of like I don't want to say an incentive thing. It's kind of on I'm learning if it's there for me to do, then I'm going to do it. But yeah, I did one this past Thursday. So I will upload that one as well, along with this show. So I'm getting the recordings out there where possible, but I don't want you all to think that I haven't been recording or haven't been sharing anything. Monday is International Podcast Day. I wanted to be sure that I got this episode out before that, so that's a big plus. I share this all the time. Like, if you really do have a love or an interest to do podcasting, I'd say go for it. Don't be alarmed or be stressed by, it's hundreds of other people doing podcasts. Like, your podcast could be the podcast that others may need to hear or may have a spark in interest in wanting to hear. You'd be surprised. So don't cripple your opportunity to create a podcast because you see other people doing podcasting. I'm not as prepared this week. Give me some time. I'll get back to my regular rotation with it, but sports will be back. Sports, music, tech, I will be getting back into those spaces again with those three. I think we talked about iOS 18 before. I don't remember in its entirety. iPhone 16 did come out. I was very underwhelmed. I didn't see anything that put me in a position to say I want to get the iPhone 16. Even if I had my 12, I probably would still keep the 12 before getting the 16. The shutter is negotiable. If you're someone who takes a lot of photos, it could be a good feature. It's very multi-based. I think that's a big deal. But there's nothing that's really a big pull. If you are a beta tester, they do have the public beta for iOS 18.1 available. I've been testing it out a little bit. I will be 100% honest in saying that them adding a focus mode called reduce interruptions might have been the best thing ever, because in my opinion, it heightens what the focus mode does to like 10, and it's very useful. It's very resourceful from personal experience. I have truly grown to love that focus mode since having it available, because now I can check what I want to check when I want to check it and not feel bad or feel guilty if I'm not as readily available as people would like me to be. And sometimes you need those moments. And I think that's what has been my big compelling factor. The Gen emoji or the Gemoji that's not available yet that I noticed. I've been messing around with the beta, with the AI or Apple Intelligence. Apple Intelligence is a more high profile name of the S word. I can't say it because I know if I say it, it's going to start a lot of people's setups on their phone. But let's just say she is there if you need her. But you can change the voice to, you have different voice changing options, so you don't have to have her sound like the traditional young lady. And yeah, it's good. But like a friend of mine said it, and I'm not against him on this at all. If you're not pressed to get the beta and you're not pressed to utilize the features yet, just keep what you have and use what you have with where it is. And then once the official update comes out, then use it and kind of go from there. Yesterday, a huge trade happened, and I happened to be fully awake as this trade hit the airwaves. They were saying that the trade was in talks, but it officially happened. After 9 seasons with the Timberwolves, he never demanded a trade, but Karl Anthony Towns was traded to the Knicks for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. And I'm sitting here saying that name. I'm making sure I'm giving the right name, but I believe it was for DiVincenzo. I believe there was a third team involved with this trade, and they're trying to. They wanted to be sure. I think they needed like a third team to kind of get the trade to really move, and I think Detroit was involved with it. So I believe they have a player that was moved as part of the trade as well, and it was DiVincenzo, as in fact, who was traded. Let's see. So to kind of give you the overall, Shams, who is now the new Woj, haven't had a chance to talk about that. So Adrian Wojnarowski is now the GM, or he's handling things with St. Bonaventure's basketball team. It's like AD or something of that sort. So he's no longer with ESPN, so you won't be getting any more Woj bombs. So now they've called it the Shams bomb or something like that. And the first one he had was the Knicks were sending DiVincenzo, Julius Randle, Keita Bates Diop, and a future round pick to the via Detroit Pistons to the Timberwolves for Towns. And that was so they were able to get the Pistons in with adding in Bates Diop. Everyone that's a Knicks fan is kind of saying the same thing. They don't think that Karl Anthony Towns has that quote unquote dog in him, or that fight to really want to play. You're going to get the scoring from him, but I think they're also looking at, like, if we need a bucket, are you really going to go out and get a bucket? When Randle was healthy, Randle did definitely help the Knicks offense with getting a bucket. Brunson has grown to be loved in New York because he's going to go out there, he's going to get a bucket. He don't care. He's going to go after it. He's going to get to it. He got no shame in his game, and he lets who he is and what he does speak for itself. My bad, I heard some odd sounds on my wheel, so I just want to make sure nothing was like going anywhere. But I think, as it's kind of seen now, like the Knicks won on this trade, but I also don't think the T-Wolves, it kind of puts the T-Wolves in a very rough spot, because now the pressure is a lot heavier on Anthony Edwards. But I still see Edwards averaging I see him averaging anywhere from 25 to 28 a game this season. So we'll see. So I briefly mentioned it earlier, but I didn't have a chance to fully announce this yet, but it's been now, I believe, close to 3 months. But I am officially a verified member on Twitter. And I was very unsure about doing the verification process for a couple of personal reasons, which I won't go into, only because this is not that type of podcast. Anyone who knows me knows there are topics I won't get into. But those factors played a part into whether I was going to actually become Twitter verified or get the blue check. But I did get the verification check on my page, and I've posted a fair amount. I was pretty active with it when I first got it, but now it's kind of been like fluctuating. And lately I'm looking and pushing to change that. And what that looks like is by actually placing more effort behind utilizing Twitter to engage and interact where necessary, but not being caught up in a whole lot of like social media banter, rah back and forth. That I'm not going to do. But but I will, get online, talk about different things, have good conversations, stuff like that. I have no problem in that avenue of that category, but the rest of it, I'm good. I made a very unique executive decision, and I need to update my desktop or my screen to show this, and you'll hear that sound effect, but it'll make sense in a moment. I've been rocking with Things 3 for, we'll say, for lack of a better term, at least I've been using Things 3 for about 2 or 3 years. And when I first got it, I didn't think much of it, but as I've started to use it more often, I think it's growing on me. Well, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. It had grown on me very well, but then I noticed that I wasn't using it as much as I normally would. So for those who don't know, first and foremost, Android users, close your ears. Things 3 is a iOS-based application. It is for the Mac. It is for iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch. It is not a Windows-based app. That is one of its downfalls. That was one of the things that I had concerns about with using it, and I thought about it as I was making a decision on what I wanted to do. Now, thankfully, I've mainly invested in two of the three, which is the iPad and the phone. I used them, I rocked with them, I rolled with them. They did the thing that I needed them to do. But I've now found that I need something that can kind of do what I needed to do, which is to set tasks and put me in a position to complete tasks. A few years back, I was using an application called Wunderlist, which I thought Wunderlist was like the best app smoking as far as checklists and finishing stuff. And I used it for quite a while, and then Wunderlist kind of disappeared. They were acquired by Todoist, and I recently set up and got comfortable with using Todoist. I did a quiz a couple of days ago that was reflecting on if I'm like a GTD person, which GTD ties in with Things 3 to some extent. However, because Todoist is pushing this platform, they, after taking the quiz to reflect what type of person I was, it was confirmed that I am a person that's about, I got to eat the frog. Eating the frog is one of the most annoying things to think of, but it's the reality of some forms or ways of getting what you need to get done. And what I have found personally is what I know I need to get done is if I need to do the thing, I got to do the thing. I can't put the thing off and keep waiting for the thing to come back around and eventually it'll get done. Like if I don't do it, then it won't get done. I'm very productive oriented. I'm very like routine based, I guess is what a lot of people say, but it's worked for me for quite some time. So it's kind of fallen into that age old phrase of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I will say Todoist has pushed me a lot harder with getting those lists or things knocked out. So today, which I haven't had a chance to, I'm going to do. So I've been using the journals. And I talked about this a little bit. I'm going to kind of be all over the place, but this will all make sense in a bit. I went to, so iOS 18 made an update that I was very appreciative of because I don't think the update was ever there. And that is that you can now do voice recordings in the Journals app. I like the Journals app. When the Journals app was first introduced, I thought it was a nice concept to be able to, if you wanted to do recordings or if you wanted to do writings in the Journals app, you could. But it wasn't what I was looking for it to be. So then when they brought out the update for the Journals app as well as the voice recording app, where whatever you say after it's been said, you can then go in and, for lack of a better term, caption or have it turn from voice to text of what you just said. And I like that feature a lot because then I can put that as, hey, this is a writing source and I'm doing some form of writing. And I found that to be very convenient. This is a tech tip. Do with it what you will. Those are my techies who have iPhones and are using the journal feature. If you're going to do a journal feature, go in Do Not Disturb or airplane mode. The reason being is because if a phone call comes in while you're doing a voice recording, it's going to stop the recording. And that's obviously not what you need. You want it to continue recording until you're finished with everything that you need to say. So I want people to keep that in mind when they're looking at or utilizing that feature for the Journals app. And I'll just leave it at that. I increased my Buzzsprout space, but I have a feeling I may be scaling it back a little bit, only because the amount of recording that I was thinking that I would be doing versus the amount of recording that I've actually been doing are not adding up. So I don't want to put more into something if I'm not going to be using it. So we'll see. It's kind of going to be a play by ear. I know the last few months, getting the incentive and the urge to connect everything and set everything up. I've said this numerous times for folks who are looking to do podcasting. Everybody wants a podcast until it's time to podcast. And I speak from my own space when I say I value and I love podcasting. But preparation, build up, breakdown, etc., it can get like, it can get fun, but it can get like tedious if you allow it to be. And now that I've been doing it for a while, like I've kind of gotten like into a groove with it, so I'm good. Especially, and now I've had my new mics since, when did I get the microphones? That was, I want to say it was April or May. I haven't had them that long. I'm saying April or May, but I think it might have been longer than that. I'm saying April or May, but I think it might have been like in the spring. I've been using them very well, and then it's ironic because it was like, oh, I'm gonna get the scissor arm, and then when I got the scissor arm, it was like, I don't want to record. It was like, nope. A lot of just internal grief and just kind of working through some things, but we're gonna work on it. We're gonna, like I said, I have the scissor arms now available, so I want to start sitting down and really getting in the space of recording more frequently and just kind of going with it and seeing what's in store for that. I've talked about content creation. I don't make it more than what it needs to be. I'm going to have this rant again, but I'm going to have this rant from a different space. And I'm going to be very polite in what I say. And that is, don't call yourself or tell yourself that you're not tech savvy when you do things that are tech savvy. Many people will discredit themselves in the tech savvy space because they look at people who, and this is not ego. They look at people like me who are in tech or work with tech, and they're like, well, you just know how to do all of this stuff. And I'm like, I do, but if you really understood what it took for me to get to this point with technology, you'll understand it's not all it's cracked up to be. And I think some people get lost in translation with that because they look at it as, oh, I mean, Bryan just can get online and can do this and figure this out. And I'm like, I don't really think y'all see the final product. Y'all don't see the days when I've made some mistakes with programs or with applications or stuff hasn't worked out properly. The list goes on. But I've gotten to a point now where I'm more comfortable with the process and the flow and the structure of recording, but that's because I've used it for as long as I have. So it's been an immense amount of trial and error more than anything else. And by the way, and y'all know I'm always remind y'all, if you do not or have not done so, please remember, stay hydrated. That's all I'm gonna tell you. Just keep the water handy because you don't want to have a rough patch when it comes to doing your shows or recording. But from a tech savvy aspect, some people don't realize how much they know or are capable of doing with technology because they're comparing themselves to what they see other people can do with technology. And I'm like, it's and when I say what I say, it's gonna sound selfish, but it's gonna sound selfless in a moment when I explain it. I learned a lot of what I learned when I was like a kid. When I was like from 6 to 10, I was a sponge with computers. I wanted to learn computers. I wanted to understand computers. I wanted to figure out how they work, what was RAM, what were how to get storage, how to install a hard drive, how to, do a power, manage a power supply. In all of my years of working with computers, not once did I ever, even with me buying computers like I did, I never built my own PC. I was never a big fan of that type of work, but I could build my own PC. I just won't into the buying and building part. I was into the, hey, it's already set. Cool. This is what I need. Great. I'm going to use this and I'm going to do what I needed to do and it's going to work. And bam, we got a computer. And when I went to the Mac side of things, before I did, and I probably haven't shared this online, but I'm going to share this. One of my friends who has been like my design spirit animal, but then he's also been like that person that like has had to get me on track when I've gotten off track. I remember he and I working together, and he and I worked with each other for quite some time. I think we had worked with each other up until about like pre-COVID. And I can remember him way back talking to me about tech and talking to me about, his computer. Because he had a Mac early on. And, I'm looking at it and I'm talking to him and I would ask him different questions. And he said, everything kind of worked pretty much just about works the same. Like you use your applications like normal. This works with this, just kind of giving me the full breakdown. And I was like, okay, like I could work with this. I can do it. And the biggest thing he told me, and when he said it, it was like, it's two things that are probably the biggest adjustment to using Macs. And they are, one, when you're scrolling on like web browsers or you're using the mouse, it's in reverse. So like when you're used to using Windows, if you move the scroll wheel from top to bottom, it moves down the page. Whereas with Mac, it's in reverse because it does it that way to mirror or be similar to the iPhones or the iPods. I mean, iPods or iPads or whatever. You can turn that feature to the traditional setting, but I've gotten so used to it now, like when I get on a Mac, I can scroll with it and it's no problem. So that's adjustment number one. Adjustment number two is in Windows, Control whatever does all of your stuff. So like Control O is open, Control U is underline, Control I is italics, Control B is bold. And I know a lot of y'all like, how do you know all this stuff? And I'm like, these are keyboard shortcuts that have been keyboard shortcuts since the 80s. But I've been in computers. Like I got into computers big in the 90s. So when I got into it, it was second nature. I say that because in Mac, it's instead of control, it's command. So the command key has the same ability as control on Windows. There is a control key on Mac, but it doesn't have the same ability as it does on Windows. Promise you it's going to sound weird, but if you look at the command key on any Mac keyboard and use the command key with the same letters that I just said, it will do those same features. And if you actually go into any menu on a Mac, it will show you how those shortcuts will work. So if I go right now on my computer, if I hit edit, if they weren't grayed out, the first one is Z for undo, X is cut, C is copy, V is paste. And then knowing the difference between delete and backspace, that's a whole different scenario. So just stuff like that. But I got into it and it's worked for me. But I don't expect others to know and understand those things because that's not stuff that you're around on a day-to-day basis. However, we have the mighty, beautiful world known as the internet. And with the internet, you literally can look for and figure out how to do just about anything. But you have to be sure you're looking for the right things and not being overwhelmed as to what you're trying to look for when researching or doing your proper research online. That's my 2% take on that. What else we got? I talked about this a little bit, or I've kind of gotten into this, but not fully gotten into it. My bad. I'm like doing multiple things, but not really. I want to crack the space of technical writing. What that looks like, how that's going to work, haven't figured it out yet, but we're working on it. We're navigating it, and I really want that to be a big thing. I'm not going to talk about the Olympics because we're way behind with the Olympics. The newsletter's still going strong. I've been sticking to every Sunday writing. I owe you all, as if you were readers of it, I owe you all an apology for the September writing challenge. I did start that up a little bit, but I did not keep it going. And there was just a lot going on personally that didn't really, there was a lot of, and I'm going to be a little vulnerable with y'all, so bear with me. There was a lot of sloughing and autopilot-esque moves with not being as attached to writing those as I wanted to. I'll be fully upfront. Last week, or a little over a week ago, well, actually, no, it was last week as of when I'm recording, I went to New Orleans. Had a good time. It was a business trip. I learned a lot about a association that I'm a part of, and I need to really get some information and some learning with that going on. But more than that, I was actively inactive. And what I mean by that is things needed to be done, but I had to really put myself in a position to autopilot and work through it because it had to be done. And I'm one of the biggest fan of it being done, but there wasn't someone else that could step in to do the things that I was in the position of having to do. And this is something that I found myself writing a lot in my journal, but I'm saying this to you all now here. I don't say this like, woe is me, I'm looking for pity, like throw sorrow in my direction. It's more of, I want you to understand this is why this was not done the way it needed to be done. The last couple of weeks, I can almost say the last few months, honestly, a lot of people have talked to me and you've had conversations about different things. And I'm always having to remind them of the 4 agreements. I feel like I talk about the 4 agreements on the podcast at least once a month, if not every other month. I'm not going to talk about them in depth, but I'm going to talk about the 4th one because anytime I look at the Mamba mentality, constant quest to be the best version of oneself. Agreement number 4, always do your best. Those two, like the Mamba mentality and agreement number 4, are like BFFs, for lack of a better term. And that's important to keep in mind because in anything that you do, you want to do it to the best of your ability. There was a quote that I found online, and there was a lady who was teaching a class, and she repeated she was repeating a couple of lines in this video, and I've written it in my journal. I need to write it in my bullet journal. I'm almost intending to dedicate a page to this message. If you change your thoughts, you change your life. Whoever controls your mind controls your time. Whoever controls your time controls your mind. They control your whole life. I'm reading it how I'm reading it, but the message itself she's repeating this to the students. If you change your thoughts, if you change your thoughts, you change your life. If you change your thoughts, you change your life. If you change your thoughts, you change your life. So whoever controls your mind controls your time. Whoever controls your mind controls your time. Whoever controls your time controls your mind, which means they can control your whole life. And we as people sometimes don't realize that changing our thoughts really does change our life. And we don't take that into consideration sometimes, how key it is to just change how we see things and how we look at things in our life. There are other topics that I could get into, but I'm going to make that the message for today or for tonight. Change how you see things. Change how people see things around you. Many times people are very great at doing this thing, but they do a bad job of doing this thing. And it is called painting a narrative. We've heard this term. It's become such a buzzword lately, but I'm going to break this down into a very direct instance. We know how we feel about something, or we know where we stand on something. But if we've given another person or another individual the slightest bit of an idea that it's not what the thing is that we're saying it is, or fitting to be, or whatever the case may be, then we've let the narrative, or we let the flow be what they've told us it is, instead of us knowing what it is. We have control over our own personal well-being, our own personal narrative. But if we're putting other people in a position to change that narrative or make that narrative be something that it's not, we've lost control. For over 5 or 6 years, there was a conversation that many of my friends would hear me have. And every time I would have this conversation, they always knew when I was getting ready to get into it, because it was something I was just naturally passionate about. And that was the phrase of being a passenger and being a driver. Now, let me be 100% clear. Everybody can't be a passenger, and everybody can't be a driver. But many times in our lives, and I'm gonna talk about this in a really deep manner before I go where I was about to go. For quite a few years, I always thought, or always had this conception or idea that I was a passenger. Until one day, I realized that I was the driver. And why I say it like that, or why it hits closer to home, is because even as I think about it now, I look at the people in my life. One of my friends said something to me. I shared a video with her that I've shared with a lot of people about, people being in your life and where they fit, whether they're in VIP, whether they're in front row, in the balcony, stuff like that. And she came to me her and I talked about the video. And she also made a statement or made a reference in, you don't know who your assignment is. In many cases in our life, we really don't realize who we're intended to pour into and who's intended to pour into us. One of my good friends that's been like a brother, someone, and this is so crazy, but it's so true. someone that we both know is a mutual. My friend posted a status talking about the mutual. With the mutual, I just listened to his album, which, by the way, Ice James, check out his new album. It's a nine track album. Nice album, good flow. I'll remember to add it in the show notes. Can I add tags on here? Yes, I can mark the podcast. We did it. But I listened to his album. It came out on Friday. Now I'm gonna be fully real with y'all before I go into the story. It'll all make sense at the moment. But I started to listen to the album on Friday. Then my brain did 1,001 things. The mind has nearly over 10,000 thoughts per day. I want to make sure I get this right. And I was way off. Let me multiply that by 6. According to research, the average person has approximately 60,000 thoughts per day. So in that moment, I probably had a couple other thoughts that all popped up as I was intending to do the thing of listening to his show or listening to his album. So like I said, I started to listen to the first track and I didn't play it. Then this morning I get up, going through trying to get out of a rotting state or getting out of a sloughing state, get up and get active, get moving. I was like, I'm going to listen to this album. So I turned the album on, started listening to it, got one of my little portable speakers, turned the speaker on, and I listened to the whole thing. And it wasn't even like it was background noise. I was like folding clothes, but I was still listening to the album. And I was like, all right, this is a good album. But why I bring this up is because he had they had happened to bump into each other, and their interaction, I commented and I was like, yo, that's divine timing. And so he reaches the person who put the status up. My friend reaches out to me, and from there, I give him my number. We text each other. We've been texting. We actually got on a phone call. We was on a call for like almost an hour, if not an hour. And I bring this up because today, and I don't think he'll mind me talking about this, because he's looking to join me on a show soon, which I'm looking forward to that big time. I was telling him, I was like, yeah. I said, I may roll by, because he's supposed to be bowling tomorrow. I said, I may roll by after I do my podcast. Now it would have been tomorrow, but I'm doing the podcast now. I said, yeah, I've been kind of just, not budging, not really doing much. He said, yeah, I've been laying around most of the time. And then he just started to move around and get some stuff going. And I was telling him, I was like, yeah, we have what's called like a do nothing day. And his reference of it is to recharge. So as we're talking about it, he gives his breakdown, like, it's good. What good is he to society or the world or anyone if he's running on empty? So then I responded and I said, you can't pour from an empty cup. And many times in life, we're giving people like our empty cup, or people are coming to us to pull from the empty cup, and they don't care. I've found myself more inclined to realizing that I've got to be full for me, and then I can be available to those around me. And it's not being selfish. It's being aware of how I'm being treated, or in some cases mishandled. But I'm saying that to you all, or I'm sharing that message with this in context of this, because you sometimes need to have things be where they are or go through what they go through for it all to come together. And one thing that's been clear with me lately is that even as we near like the 2-month mark of my father's passing, and just where life has been carrying me and continue to carry me, I'm learning more and more to not take time for granted. And I know this recording is probably going to go in a little bit of a unique direction. I know I was going to wrap it up, but I really want everyone to just spend a moment of the day. I want you to do 2 things, actually 3, if you can. Don't go out and buy a journal. I'm not telling you to buy a journal, but I want you to get a piece of paper and pen and write down your thoughts. Write out your thoughts that's in your mind right now. After you do that, I then want you to pray. Pray to whomever your higher power, higher being is. I give God thanks every day. Every day that I wake up, I am thankful. But I want you to write down where you at with how you feel about whatever's going on. I want you to pray. And finally, and this does not have to be anything immense. Either go outside, walk for like 5 minutes, or just go outside in nature for like a couple minutes. When you go out there, leave your phone. Don't take the phone with you. Don't use this as an opportunity. I'm going to play some music while I'm outside. No, go out and like enjoy Earth. Quick story time and then I'm gone. I've been following Anna and MJ Spacetime. They formerly Spacetime Monotask, but now I think they're like the internet. What's their reference now? Home. I want to call it home of the internet, but I don't think that's what it's called. I want to make sure I give it the right name. I think it's good to know, but I didn't see it. It'll probably come to the rest of my apps soon. The internet people. And Anna has been talking about a reference of like 30 tech, like doing tech rest. And part of it, she mentions to, if you go out for a walk, just go out for a walk. Don't put on earbuds and listen to music. Don't put on earbuds and listen to a podcast. Just go walk and just experience the walk. I've done it a couple times. I need to do it a couple more times, but I've done it a couple times, and I definitely can feel and notice the difference in doing so. So I want to share that as a challenge or an opportunity if you're able to do it, and just give yourself that moment and that opportunity to do so. Thank you all for this day. Thank you for this opportunity. Those who are able to hear this podcast, I'm appreciative of each and every single one of you. Continue to grow, continue to evolve, continue to live. Don't stop living. Don't stop being. The more opportunities you have to be present, the more that you have to notice where life can take you. I ask that you watch over everyone who hears and is able to make it to this point of the show, that has been supportive, that has been honest, that has been open to feedback, and been real in any way, shape, or form. I ask these things in your name. Amen. Until next time, Pat signing out. Peace. Truly hope you all enjoyed the show. Definitely was a lot to unpack, but I know you'll walk away with something important. As I share the end of each season, do find your way to get into podcasting if it's something you would like to do. My podcasts are currently recorded via Buzzsprout. Been very good to me. If you want to learn more about using them, definitely hit me up at thepastbtpod@gmail.com. And also the microphone that you're hearing me on is the Blue Yeti X. Have been rolling with it for over 3 years. We've been doing this ride for quite some time, so I hope someone could find this mic useful. Again, find those people who are good or helpful in what you're trying to do to be better today than you were yesterday. The primary goal is to be 1% better. Hope you all have an amazing day, and we'll be back again to do this next time.